Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever walked into a library, seen shelves packed with stories and information, and wondered who decides what gets to be there? And perhaps, more importantly, who decides what doesn't? Today, we're exploring a phenomenon that's become increasingly visible in the United States: the surge in attempts to remove books from school libraries. We'll be looking at how one major publication, The Economist, framed this barmy battle, and then digging deeper into what that framing might miss.
It's a really crucial topic because it touches on fundamental questions about access to information, education, and, well, even the role of artificial intelligence in some pretty unexpected places. We're going to unpack not just what is happening, but how and why it's happening, and what the often overlooked implications might be.
Okay, let's unpack this. The Economist article, it paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? Describing organized Puritans invading school libraries. It highlights an alarming trend. According to Penny in America, there were roughly 10,000 book bans in U.S. schools in 2023-24 alone.
Yeah, 10,000.
That's a fourfold increase in just 2 years. I mean, that's a massive number.
Indeed, the scale of the surge is undeniable. And the targets are remarkably predictable when you look closely. We're seeing titles with sexual content, LGBTQ plus themes, or those addressing race disproportionately targeted.
Right.
For instance, Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series, with its romantasy and explicit content. That's frequently banned. But it's not just new stuff. Even classics like Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and Alice Walker's The Color Purple are being removed.
And it's not just about content deemed sexual, is it? The most banned book overall, according to some lists, is Jodi Picoult's 19 Minutes. That deals with a school shooting, but the main objection seems to be its depiction of a date rape.
Exactly. And then you have the irony, like with The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, that one's striking.
A book about a dystopia where women are forbidden to read, being purged. The article notes the irony is often lost on the banners themselves. And what's really key here, I think, is that these aren't just isolated incidents. It's not just one parent complaining anymore.
The Economist points this out too, right? It's becoming policy-driven.
Absolutely. States like Florida and Iowa have adopted laws that either, well, invite or even mandate removals. This pushes districts to preemptively clear shelves, sometimes without much review, just to avoid penalties.
So they're clearing shelves just in case.
Pretty much. Florida districts, for example, pulled hundreds of titles fearing state action. That's a big shift from individual complaints to, systemic pressure.
Okay, so that's the big picture from the article. The scale, the targets, the shift towards policy. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. While The Economist captures that scale and the culture war feel, there's maybe more nuance underneath. Things that explain the chaos.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, while PE in America reports that huge number, 10,046 bans, it's important to understand how they count. They count any removal or restriction, even if it's just temporary, like during a review.
Okay, so a temporary poll counts as a ban in their tally.
Yes. The American Library Association, they track challenges across all libraries, not just schools, and report fewer attempts. Though still, historically high numbers. Neither number is wrong exactly. They're just using different yardsticks.
Ah, I see.
It's better to see them as complementary, not contradictory. One challenge might lead to bans in multiple schools in a district, inflating the ban count versus the challenge count.
So it's not one single measurement. And you mentioned the legal side isn't totally one-sided either.
That's right. That's often missed. The legal landscape is definitely not a one-way street toward censorship. Courts have been quite active. Remember the Supreme Court's 1982 PICO decision? That limited removing library books just because you disagree with the ideas.
Okay, that's a key precedent.
And more recently, judicial pushback has blocked Texas's HB 900 vendor rating mandate.
The one requiring vendors to rate books?
That's the one. And in Arkansas law, Act 372, was struck down as unconstitutional. Iowa's Sex Acts ban is on hold thanks to injunctions, so there's a significant legal countercurrent happening.
That's a crucial detail. It suggests the fight isn't over. Now, the article focuses on organized Puritans, but is it always that simple? Are there other things pushing administrators?
Well, it's not just organized Puritans, so they are a factor. It's also this complex mix of vague laws and, frankly, institutional risk management.
Risk management, how so?
Think about it. If a state passes a really broad law, poorly defined standards, administrators get nervous. They worry about penalties, maybe even personal liability. So they might over-remove books defensively just to be safe, pulling huge numbers, even before clear guidance comes down.
Ah, so the vagueness of the laws themselves creates a chilling effect.
Precisely. We even saw Florida in 2024 had to put in a rule, HB 1285, limiting non-parent objections to just one per month to try and stop these flood-the-system tactics where groups would just bury districts in challenges.
Wow. Okay. And speaking of process, or maybe lack thereof, The Economist mentioned districts using ChatGPT to find naughty bits.
Yeah, that was something. It really highlights a process failure, maybe more than just moral panic. You had districts under pressure, tight deadlines, using AI to basically scan books for problematic content.
And how did that work out?
Predictably poorly. The AI hallucinated, misclassified things, flagged content that wasn't even there sometimes.
So using an unreliable tool for a really sensitive job.
Exactly. It shows how rushed and maybe ill-considered some of these implementation methods can be when the pressure's on.
So pulling it all together, what we're seeing is, yes, passionate activism, but also these poorly written laws, administrators feeling scared, and even flawed tech driving removals. It's much more complicated than just prudes with attitude.
It really is a blend of ideology, systemic pressure, fear, and sometimes just, well, bad process.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, the learner, the parent, the citizen trying to make sense of this?
Well, it means that while the culture war noise is loud, the actual mechanics behind book removals, how statutes are written, shortcuts in due process, even using AI, explain a lot of the chaos. Take Martha Hickson, that librarian in New Jersey. She refused to remove a graphic novel because proper procedures weren't followed.
Right, you mentioned her. What happened?
She faced horrible backlash, accusations of being a pornographer, a pedophile, harassment. Her school was vandalized.
Just for insisting on following the rules.
Yes. But ultimately, because she stuck to the process, the book was reviewed properly and kept. Her story shows that process matters, but upholding it can come at a steep personal cost right now.
It really underscores the real-world impact of vague policies and inflamed rhetoric. So if the counter-movement is partly legal, and if good policy means clear standards, what should we be watching for now? How does this evolve?
Well, expect more court cases, for sure, and states trying to rewrite their laws to make them, lawsuit-proof. Courts will keep pushing back on vagueness. Keep an eye on how Florida enforces its rules, what happens next in those Texas and Iowa appeals. Those cases will set precedents. The future here won't just depend on who shouts loudest. It'll depend on how precisely states write rules and how districts implement them in ways that can actually survive a First Amendment challenge in court.
So it's not about having zero standards then. It's about finding a better way.
Exactly. Things like transparent challenge protocols, clear due process, maybe age-banded shelving instead of outright bans for everyone, time-limited reviews, public logs so people know what's being challenged and why, parental opt-in controls perhaps so one parent's choice doesn't restrict everyone else.
Options that could dial down the everything or nothing politics.
Hopefully. Approaches that reduce the incentives for these massive, sometimes indiscriminate purges. It's about finding practical ways forward.
Ultimately, this whole exploration of book banning, it goes way beyond just the specific books or the culture wars, doesn't it? It's really about the foundations of how knowledge is managed, how it's accessed, how it's challenged in our communities, how policies get made, and what happens on the ground.
And it leaves us with a really important question, I think. When we talk about protecting students, what does that really mean? Are we truly safeguarding their ability to think critically, to engage with complex, sometimes uncomfortable ideas? Or are we maybe inadvertently creating environments where nuance and difficult truths just get, well, erased?
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. We hope it's given you a deeper perspective on this really complex and still unfoldable issue.